You are now listening to the Wilson King Podcast.
This episode of the Wilson King Podcast is brought to you by Wright Live. Contact Wright Live for all your wedding, entertainment, band, and DJ needs. WrightLiveEvents.com, WrightLiveEvents@gmail.com, or visit us on Facebook at Wright Live.
What the fuck is up, everybody? Welcome to another beautiful week of the Wilson King Podcast. We are sitting down with Captain DadPool. What is up, man?
How's it going?
Dude, so obviously I know a little bit of your backstory from my wife watching you on TikTok for the last few years. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, give us a little bit about yourself.
I go by Captain DadPool 86, mostly on TikTok. I have almost 500,000 followers, I think, at this point. I don't really check. But you can also find me on Twitter, and I have a YouTube show called Nerds and Heresy where I interview scholars in various fields. Other than that, I was a very devout Christian for 15 years, and I went to Bible college with the hopes of becoming a pastor, Bible scholar. I didn't really know at that point, and when I graduated, I ended up having more questions than I had answers, and eventually I deconstructed and was no longer a Christian, and then eventually became a full-blown atheist. And so I'll talk about that, and I'm still a huge Bible nerd. So I still talk about what the Bible actually says from an atheist perspective. And yeah, that's kind of what I do.
So what was that transition like? Like going, was that just one of those things where just one day you were like, I don't understand this, or like I still have way too many questions and I literally just went to college? Or
yeah, it's kind of like when I graduated college, I had tons and tons of questions, like I said before, and I tried very hard to kind of ignore them and push them down, but I was still a member of a church. I was still playing in the worship band of a church. And eventually I just couldn't reconcile everything I had learned in Bible college and what I'd learned from doing my own research. And I no longer identified as a Christian, but I still believed in God. It was just still kind of exploring that. But I stayed active in the church for a little while, just kind of went through the motions. And eventually, I could no longer reconcile the existence of God at all. So, yeah, here we are.
so part of the reason that my wife really attracted towards you is she grew up Southern Baptist her whole life, her whole childhood.
Yeah.
And I grew up Methodist.
Oh.
Pretty much all my life. I quit going to church once I got into high school, and I was wrestling, so I was at tournaments Friday and Saturday. I was beat up. I just quit going to church. And then I started asking my own questions. I got really big into alien theory.
Oh boy.
And aliens and whatnot. And I started okay, so you have all these religions. You have people who still practice Norse pagan. You still, you have Muslim, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Catholicism, and all these other religions, and everyone's saying I'm the right one. Well, how do you know that you are the right religion?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer I get every single time I've asked, at least a Christian, the same answer I get every single time is, you just got to believe.
Yep.
What do I just got to believe in? That's like having false faith in something.
Yeah, I was recently went on a Christian apologist's. I'd call him more of a scholar than an apologist, but he teaches like an apologetics class at a private high school. But anyway, And he was born into a Christian family in America. I'm like, how convenient. You were just happened to be born in the country where Christianity is the predominant religion, and you just happen to be right? How convenient is that? Everybody else could make the same claim. They're Muslims born in Iran, Iraq, who would say the same thing. Why are you special? And whatever reason you give to that answer, or to that question, they might give a very similar answer. You could be born in China, be Buddhist. They would give the same answer. Oh, I was born into it. I know it's true. Really? Everybody can't be right. So who's wrong? And that's kind of one of my complaints against religion is nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about, but everyone's very good at pretending like they know what they're talking about. And they have a lot of people fooled.
The one thing that like really made me start questioning things was looking at like the older religions like Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology, and the Egyptian gods. Like, and I'm looking at that and I'm like, how is it that for all these years, like that was the way of like, you had, the main god, like Zeus or who's the Roman one? Anyways, we'll just talk on the Greek side. But, you got Zeus, who's like the main one, but then you also have like all of the like other gods, like, your love god, god of war, and your messenger, and all of them. And like that was the way of practicing religion. But then out of left field, Christianity comes out.
Yep.
And like through history, Christianity is the youngest religion.
So they like to claim, yeah.
Yeah.
But even like Judaism predates Christianity, obviously. But even Judaism comes from partially Canaanite mythology and Zoroastrianism. If you look at the Canaanite texts, which we didn't discover until I think it was 1940. It's been a while since I've looked, but it's been not very long ago. We discovered like the Baal cycle, and we learned what ancient Canaanite civilizations actually believed when it came to their mythology. And we see them talking about El. In the beginning was El, just like in the Bible. Well, El was the supreme god of a Canaanite pantheon. Yahweh was one of his children. El had a wife, Asherah. And you have all these different figures that kind of got compounded together in the Bible. And so you look at it and you're like, wait a minute. Even, the Old Testament talks about dragons. What's the deal? Like, Genesis 1:14, I think it is, mentions a great sea serpent. And it's mentioned numerous other times, the behemoth and the Leviathan. What's that about? Well, that's explained in these older texts that predate the Bible by 1,000, maybe 2,000 years. And what happens is El, or in the case of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh fought the serpent and tore the serpent in half and used its body parts to create the heavens and the earth. So that's how you see, like, these mythologies are evolving, they're changing, and they're adapting as the time progressive. And so when you look at, like, Yahweh, which is the Christian God, Yahweh has only been around for maybe 5,000-6,000-ish years. Before that, there were other gods. So if you're going to come here and tell me, like, Yahweh is the one true God, then you have to account for 5-6 billion years where he is not doing anything, right? That's just the age of the earth, not even the age of the universe. So he's just like looking at the earth, going through multiple mass extinction events and just like, And then 5,000 years ago, he's like, okay, now we need to maybe do something about this. Hey, I'm your God. You're my children. Do what I say. Like, it's fucking bullshit. When you get a broader picture of everything that's been happening throughout human history, and you look at it, and you're just like, this is what we're subscribing to? Really? Because it's fucking dumb. Right? It's interesting, but it's dumb to, like, devote your life to. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with all that.
No, dude, listen, you were right on track where I was at, and you honestly helped push my point home. I got this good old like West Virginia public education, so
Oh, yeah.
but not like whenever I was, I want to say it's like right around the time I got into the Army. It was never I got into the Army. I went to basic training, and they offer all the religions. You got Jewish church, Muslim church, Buddhist church, Christian church, so on and so forth. So I'm like, I've grown up my whole life in, going to a Methodist church. I've been Baptist, Pentecostal. I've grew up around Christianity. I want to explore. So, the 8 weeks I was at Fort Benning, I would take 1 week and I would go to Buddhist church. Then I found out Buddhist church, all they do is pray.
You had that
so
at
I
Benning?
could get Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I went to Benning in 2012, 2013.
That wasn't, I went in 2009. So that wasn't too far after me. I don't think we had those options. It was just like, you go to Christian church on Sunday or you don't. You stay here and you clean the barracks.
2013 is like right around the time like basic training started changing.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
To be like more inclusive. And but I remember I went to like Buddhist church more times than I went to any other church because all they did was pray the whole time. So you could catch a couple Z's.
Ah, okay.
And but then like I'm like, man, that's kind of fucked that like I'm taking like space from other people like to sit down that like truly practice this religion. Let me go try another church. So I went to Muslim church and I was like, okay, that's in my opinion, it runs a little bit like, going to a Christian church. That's cool. And then I went to a Jewish church because they always had donuts and bagels. So that was always where you went for a snack.
There you go.
Listen, I had a system down, but I also went to like, I made it to that point where like my questioning was more, I'm curious. Like I want to see like, what are these other, like how do these other religions teach? And I think like once that point hit, I'm like, this whole thing just doesn't make sense to me. And then I've spent like pretty much the rest of my, adult life after that, like looking into like, Norse paganism and looking into like the Greek mythology. And I haven't touched Roman mythology too much because like every time I've like went to go look into it, I'm like, oh, this is like Greek mythology, just different names.
Yeah, pretty much.
In my mind.
Pretty much.
And then I've done, looking into like Egyptian mythology and so on and so forth. And I guess you could say the Army is the thing that finally pushed me to like kind of do my own research. And then I started looking into like my Egyptian mythology like pushed me down the trail of like the aliens and then it was just a whole rabbit hole after that.
Yeah. And eventually you get so much like, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead first.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, you get to a certain point where you realize there's so much different information coming from so many different directions that you're just like, how the fuck? It's like a spider web, a very, very dense spider web. And you're like, how the fuck am I supposed to pick one thread and say that this is the right one? All the thousands of other threads are bullshit, but this is the right one, right? How do you do that? How do you come to that conclusion? But yeah, not sure where I was going with that one either.
So where were you, like, whenever you started making content and, was like, I've got a message that I would like to, like talk about and like still, talk about, the things I study. Like at what point was like that, like whenever you're like, okay, I think I could do this?
Ooh, it's a good question. So when I first joined TikTok, it was kind of like everybody else. It was in the pandemic. I have 4 small boys. And And when the pandemic hit, suddenly schools and daycare centers shut down. So suddenly I had 4 kids and nothing to do with them. My wife and I worked together at the same place. So we made the decision I would quit and stay at home and take care of the boys while she continued to work. And that's when I was losing my mind, changing diapers all the time, making, cereal every morning, what have you. And I was losing my mind. So I was like, let's see what this TikTok thing is all about. So I downloaded it, and for like a couple of weeks, I just watched a bunch of videos. And I was like, I could make some content. So I made mostly like political commentary and like some just like stitched videos, made jokes, did some skits. Like I didn't do anything like religious. And then one day I responded to a video of a pastor who was saying, "Those of you who have left the faith, why did you leave the faith?" And so that's when I was like, I think my exact words were, I was a devout Christian for 15 years until I went to Bible college, and I'm now an atheist because blank, 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 and blank. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that video went viral, and the next morning I woke up and I gained like 60,000 followers just from that one video. And I remember looking at my phone like, is this because I got like that in the notifications bar. It was like 99 plus. I was like, what is this? Is that an error? Is that a glitch? What is that? And I looked at my account and it was like, yeah, you have like 65,000 followers now. And I was like, what happened? And then I looked in my DMs and my comments, and I had a shit ton of people like asking me questions about the Bible, about deconstruction. What does this verse mean? What does that verse mean? What is this religion talking about? And a lot of those is like, I can answer some of these questions. So I hadn't really touched the Bible in like 3 years. So like I had to kind of dust off some of my knowledge about it. So I started just answering questions, and that's kind of where it all started. I didn't imagine this is where my content would go, but I said something that resonated with a lot of people, that a lot of people felt helpful. So I was like, yeah, if I can say something or answer a question that helps somebody, yeah, I'll absolutely do that. And been doing it ever since, pretty much.
I'm pretty sure the video that you stitched is the first video my wife ever showed me of yours.
Ooh, that was like 3 years ago. Wow.
I'm pretty certain.
So you're like an OG follower.
Dude, yes, I am. And I'm telling you right now, whenever I finally like sent you that email last weekend, it had been like you would come across my For You page. I was like, man, I really want to get him on the show. I'm kind of scared to hit him up.
Oh.
And then my wife, I think we were getting ready to go to my grandparents for breakfast. She was like, just send him a fucking email. Quit being such a pussy.
Wives are good for that. But my wife is the same.
Dude, she keeps me in check.
Right.
But now I want to steer away from, the religion and everything for a little bit, and I want to talk about your time in the service, because
sure,
that is one thing that, like, once I saw that from you, I was like, dude, I fucking love this dude. Granted, I'm still currently I've been doing the Army Reserve thing for 10 years now, because I was planning on going to college, and then I've realized I can make more money if I didn't go to college, and then next thing I know, now I'm 10 years in, and I'm like, well, what's another 10?
Yeah.
But what was like your driving factor to join? Well, how long after coming out of college did you join?
So I actually went active duty prior to college. Well, okay. So when I got out of high school, I did like a construction job for a couple of years. Then I went to college. I went to a Bible college, or I went to 2 different Bible colleges. All right. One in Knoxville, Tennessee, called Johnson Bible College. I went there for a year. And then I did another one at, holy shit, I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, I did another year at a smaller local Bible college, and that didn't work out either. Because I was living with, I was pretty much homeless, and I was living with an elderly couple from my church, and I hated it. So it was like, I had tried to join the military before, but they wouldn't take me because I had I have a gunshot wound through my shoulder. And they told me that would disqualify me, so they wouldn't take me. So that's when I did construction and went to college, and then I was like, hey, let's try the military again. But this time I'm not going to tell them about my gunshot wound. So that worked, and I got in. And it was really just, I wanted to gain some sense of independence, because again, I was living with an elderly couple. I had no future at all. I was like, hey, here's a way that I might, sacrifice a few years of my life, do some hard shit, maybe some fun shit. It'll probably be worth it, maybe worth it. Let's go for it. So I did, and so I was active duty for 3.5 years. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training. I was an infantryman. 3 months after getting assigned to my duty station, which was Fort Riley, Kansas, I went to Iraq for a year. And then I got out, or I came back to the States and stayed in, and they wanted me to re-enlist. But when you go to re-enlist from active duty, you meet with a recruiter who's like, hey, what are your demands? It's kind of like a negotiation type thing. So it was like, I don't want Fort Riley, Kansas. It's no fucking fun at all. So it was like, send me to either the Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, because that sounds dope as fuck, or send me to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, because that's the closest to home that I can get. I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, which is close to Norfolk, Virginia Beach, that type of area. And they were like, okay, yeah, we can't do any of that. You have to stay at Kansas, but they were like, we will send you to sniper school. If you re-enlist. I was like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about sniper school. No thanks, I'm out. So I got out, and I had the GI Bill, and my wife at the time, we're divorced now, but at the time, she wanted to continue her education at a school called the University of Valley Forge that she had went to while I was deployed. And I was like, yeah, what the fuck else do I got going on? Let's move there, and I'll continue my education too, and we'll see where it takes me. So I went there for 4 years, and after I graduated, or right before I graduated, I signed up for the National Guard, Pennsylvania National Guard.
Good old Pennsylvania.
Yep. And a year ago, I completed that contract. It was a 6-year contract. During that contract, I got sent to Macedonia to help with the efforts to help Macedonia join NATO. I got sent to Philly during the riots over the death of George Floyd, and I got sent to D.C. in the wake of the insurrection because there was another insurrection planned to stop the inauguration of Joe Biden. I was sent there to stop that, and as soon as we got there, they canceled all their plans. But came the 6-year mark. Again, I met with a recruiter. Actually, not a recruiter. It was my first sergeant. My first sergeant was like, "You're a good soldier. You've never gotten in trouble. You know your shit. Is there any way we can get you to re-enlist? You only have 7 years left. 7 years, and you can retire." And I was like, I can't. I'm sorry, because my unit, there's a very good chance my unit was actually scheduled to deploy to Romania or some shit for a year, and I was like, I have full custody of 4 kids. I can't just disappear for a year. That's just not on the cards. So I was like, I got to say no. So got out, and that was, almost a year ago to this date. I think it's April it was out.
What was your MOS in the National Guard? Were you still 11 bang bang?
So my state did a weird thing where they gave you a dual MOS. like everyone who was 11 Bang Bang had to like reclass. It was part of one of the like NTC or what was the yearly month-long training exercise? Not FTX, not NTC.
Annual training?
Yes, AT. Sorry. Again, been a while. Yeah, one of the ATs was to reclass to go to scout school or cavalry scout school. So that's what we did. It was cool because I got to drive a Bradley and shoot the 25 millimeter. Okay, that was cool as shit. So yeah, all that to say, here in Pennsylvania, they typically have a dual MOS, both 11 Bravo and Cavalry Scout at the same time. Not really sure why that decision was made, but that's kind of what they did. So yeah, I'm both an infantryman and a Cavalry Scout, which I know are in the active duty world, those two are kind of mortal enemies. But now I'm kind of both.
Dude, I've got two MOSs. Well, the Army has yet to change that I have two MOSs, but I completed reclass school. I'm a 92 Yankee and an 89 Bravo.
Okay. So just go ahead and remind me what those are. I can't remember.
Unit supply specialist is 92 Yankee, and then ammo supply specialist or ammo specialist is 89 Bravo. But nah, dude, the Army, if it wouldn't have been for the sign-on bonus whenever I came up on re-enlistment, I would have gotten out after my first contract.
Mm-hmm.
But I was 22.
I was 22 when I joined. Yeah.
I was 20. I was either 22 or 23. I was working as a tree trimmer, making $12.50 an hour, and the Army's like, "Hey, we'll give you $20K lump sum for 6 more years." And I'm like, "Man, $20K? I can pay off a lot of shit with $20K." So I did it, and now I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm a lifer now. What is it?
It's not a bad route to go. It's really not.
No, I mean, shoot. I've practically been in the same unit my whole career. The only reason I wasn't in the unit for like 2 years was because I got transferred out once I got my 5. But I mean, dude, honestly, you know, a lot of people ask me about like, you know, the reserves or National Guard. They're like, what's good about it? I'm like, because you get the best of both worlds. You still get your military discount at places, and you still get to have your civilian life.
Yep.
Like,
you can still go on base. You can still shop at the PX or the commissary. You can still utilize the gyms. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like you get just about all the same benefits as active duty.
Yeah.
And only have to do it once a month, 2 weeks to 29 days out of the year.
Yep. Yeah.
But now, whenever you were deployed to Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any times while you were there where, like, it made you, like, even, like, push you further into, like there ain't no way that, like, there's, like, a God out there? Well, like, into atheism?
No, because, again, I was still a Christian all throughout my deployment, and then I went to college after my deployment.
Okay.
Sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier. But still, like, it did give me like a broader perspective, because when I went to Bible college, I was 25, I think. 24, 25. And I'm in class with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds who have not lived life, certainly haven't experienced the ugly side of life like I have. You know that scene from Happy Gilmore where he's just like a grown-up and he's looking at all these kids like around him? Like, that's kind of how I felt in Bible college. So it made me much more cynical. I was still very much a Christian, but I was very cynical towards Christianity and other Christians. Like, y'all have no idea what you're talking about. Your kids, your parents are paying for you to be here. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? I had seen some shit that most people don't see, and I don't wish anybody would see. And that definitely put me in a different mindset. Like, yeah, I can't fuck with y'all. But and that's not the. Where am I even going with this rant? It's not to say, like, I thought it made me, like, a superior Christian, but I thought it made me more of a more aware Christian. Like, there are things going on in the world that you don't understand. And
Yeah, dude, I mean, I feel like whenever it comes to religion, and this is just my opinion on it, is there's sometimes where it's just a I need to feel good type of thing, if that makes sense.
oh, absolutely.
Because, like, I remember growing up, you know, to get into heaven, all you got to do is repent. So if I'm a fuck up my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
a murderer, constantly doing shit that are sins, you know, against the 10 Commandments, you know, cheat on my wife, kill, steal, so on and so forth. All I got to do on my deathbed is say, Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Supposedly,
Like
he
that.
repented and confessed Christ as his Lord and Savior on his deathbed. Like, really? So he gets to go to heaven just because of that?
Just like that.
Yeah.
And he was a huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
and that right there, it doesn't make sense at all to me. And you know, I did the whole going to the Rock in Ocean City, Maryland as a kid. You know, that it's a little like Christian retreat that they do every January and it's a huge Christian convention in Ocean City, Maryland. Huh?
You went to that? I never went to that.
So I went with my church whenever I was 13, 14. It was like 7th, 8th grade. And I remember, like, it was one of the last sessions, and we went back to the hotel with the pastor and, like, all the chaperones and everything. And, like, we had a huge conversation. You know, we all, like, you know, kind of gave our testimony, like, right then and there.
Mm.
And that's the same year I got baptized Methodist. And then as the years went on, I remember giving my testimony whenever, you know, testimony you got to give in front of the church before you get baptized.
Yep.
And I remember ever since that day, everyone judged me because of, like, my testimony. Like, I always felt that feeling of, like, eyes in the, you know, people just staring you down, like, treating you a little bit differently. Like, it wasn't everybody. There was a good bit of people in that church I went to that still treated me the same. But then there was a lot of people that was super judgmental, and I'm like, that's not cool. Like, I literally just told you all my whole 14-year existence of the things I've fucked up on, and now y'all are going to judge me because I experimented with smoking weed with my older cousins. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, as much as they like to tout you're forgiven, they don't really mean it.
No. Dude, Christianity, to me, is, like, the most judgmental, supposed to be forgiving religion. Like,
it fucking is. Like, when I was a teenager in a youth group, on fire for God, mind you, I had a necklace that was a sword with a dragon wrapped around it. And then a woman comes like, "Is that something you should be wearing as a Christian?" was like, what the fuck do you mean? It's a sword with a dragon wrapped around it. It's cool as shit. What is this should I not be wearing this? Like, why is this a problem? And she was like, I just feel like if you're really Christian, you wouldn't be wearing that, you know? It's like, no, I don't know. Why is this a problem right now? Why are you coming up to me in church right after we just got done worshiping, telling me I need to take this piece of metal around my neck off? Like, yeah. It's nuts.
Dude, the stuff... Religion just, to me, just fucking baffles me. Because, I mean, like I told you before, like, I've never, like, truly studied, like, any other religion, just because I've never been that type of person. Like, if I'm not interested in it, I don't want to, like, dive deep into it. But I've always, like, and the reason I did all my studying into, like, the ancient religions, you know, all the Greek mythologies and all that, is because it's, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so if for thousands of years there was always multiple gods and religions, why is it now that the main religions are all singular gods?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I've always been like, what if, hear me out, what if every religion we have today is just a branch off of an ancient religion, that there was a group that's like, no, this one's the real God, and we're going to follow him instead of, like, worshiping all of them? That's always been, like, a thought in my mind.
Yeah.
As a backwoods West Virginia kid, that's always been a thought in my mind. Like, what if today's religion is literally just a branch off of ancient religion, and instead of worshiping multiple gods, now a group back in the day just decided, hey, let's worship Zeus full time. Fuck the other ones. Let's just worship Zeus. And then another one's like, hey, let's worship Aphrodite's. Fuck all the other ones.
Yeah.
It makes sense in my head.
No, you're absolutely on something there. Because it started out as like a battle over which god should be worshipped and which god shouldn't be. There's a story in Jeremiah 44 where women are worshiping the Queen of Heaven. They're making cakes for the Queen of Heaven. And prophets of Yahweh are trying to convince them to go back to worshiping Yahweh. And the women are like, why the fuck would we go back to worshiping Yahweh? Our life was miserable when we were offering sacrifices to Yahweh. But since we started baking cakes for the Queen of Heaven, our life got so much better. So yeah, we're not going back to that shit. That's kind of how it started. Like which the worship of which god yielded the best results. So that's kind of what the debate was about. And then when whoever gained power decided this god should be worshipped primarily, like you can worship other gods too. You can offer sacrifices to Asherah or Anat or Baal or Dagon or whoever, as long as you worship Yahweh the most, right? And then it from there it evolved into, I think us worshiping Anat or Asherah or Baal even a little bit is causing us problems. So we need to get rid of them. And that's why in the Daniel, the Asherah poles are removed from the temple of Yahweh. So they're like, we need to stop worshiping her completely because it's causing us problems. So just worship. These other gods exist. They still exist. They're not denying they exist. But they're saying we shouldn't worship them. Instead, exclusively worship this one God, or Yahweh. And then the other gods kind of faded from existence. And now, eventually, come circa I don't know, 2nd, 3rd century AD, maybe earlier than that. Suddenly, those gods don't exist anymore. They're not real. They're made up. They're actually, now that I say that, Philo of Alexandria, who's writing during the life of Jesus, rejected the existence of these other gods. So these other gods that were acknowledged as existing, but were like, don't worship them, suddenly they're like, yeah, they don't exist at all, period. Just this one god. And so you start to see how the worship of these beings gets channeled into this one deity for very, very political reasons. That's why we're in this mess today. Politics. Holy shit. Don't get me started. That's why we're in this mess today, because of politics. In the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century. And even before. So yeah, don't know if that made any sense, but...
Well, man, that made perfect sense, at least in my brain. It kind of reminds me of...
I don't know where I was going.
I remember... It reminds me of watching Game of Thrones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like how they talked about the, old guard, the old 7. Now we got the new.
Yep.
Like that's literally what it reminds me of. But honestly, I think watching Game of Thrones kind of like threw me back into that like spell in my life, like where I was like, okay, now I'm questioning everything again. Before I was like, I'm more agnostic than I am atheist. Like I believe there's a higher power. I just don't know what it is. Is it aliens? Is it fucking Christian God? Is it Allah? Is it, Buddhism? Like, is it any of them? I don't know, but I believe there's something. I lean more towards aliens. I believe we're in a science experiment for another race out there, but that's neither here nor there.
That's a possibility.
But, hey, man, I hate to cut this off, but sure. I think I'm running out of time. But I would love to get you back on to chat some more, because I am fucking loving this. And plug your socials and where people can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok at CaptainDadPool86. You can find me on YouTube under the same name, although the name of my show is Nerds and Heresy. You can find links to my bio wherever I am, and I'm probably I think I'm most active on Twitter these days. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
Well, man, thank you for coming on the show and giving me your time this evening. Definitely want to get you back on, because
yeah, let me know.
Love the conversation, love the back and forth. But if this is your first time listening to us, thank you for listening. If you don't know where to find us, you can find us on all socials at The Wilson King Podcast. You can also find us at our website at thewilsonkingpodcast.com. We got a merch store on there, so you can go check that out. We got backpacks, t-shirts, hoodies, beanies, snapbacks, and coffee mugs. I'm a slut for some coffee, so I had to make sure to get my own mugs made.
Same.
But, dude, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. Be safe, be responsible, don't drink and drive. Peace.